In a city defined by progress and ambition, one woman had it all. A career on the rise, a new love, a future she had carefully built. But in a matter of seconds, it all disappeared, without warning, without mercy. What happened that evening beneath the glow of a luxury high-rise would shatter families, shake a community, and expose something far more sinister than anyone imagined. This wasn't random. It wasn't a mistake. It was personal. The truth behind what happened would take investigators across phone towers, airport terminals, surveillance frames, and a trail of digital obsession. And yet, the motive was heartbreakingly simple. One choice, one obsession, one plan that was never meant to be traced. But every plan leaves fingerprints. This is not just a story about what was lost. It's about what someone was willing to do to take it. Before the headlines, before the hunt, before the truth unraveled, there was Kendra. And the last day she ever saw. This is where the story begins. Before the headlines, before the sorrow, there was just Kendra. A child with a vibrant spark and a heart wide open to the world. She was born and raised in Pleasant Plains, Illinois, a small town where everyone knows your name, and faith is stitched into the rhythm of daily life. Kendra was the youngest in her family. Her mother described her as a beam of light, the kind of child who asked how you were and waited to hear the real answer. From an early age, her kindness wasn't performative. It was instinctive. A gentle presence with an iron will to succeed. She graduated high school with honors. Then came the University of Kentucky, where she immersed herself in science, in service, and in something even more important, purpose. Kendra had set her heart on dentistry. Not for money. Not for prestige. But because she believed that healing someone's smile could help heal their life. She excelled. Her professors remembered her as relentless, but not competitive. She uplifted those around her. Even in the high-pressure world of med school, she remained grounded in compassion. In 2015, Kendra settled in Dallas, a city pulsing with energy, opportunity, and promise. She joined a thriving dental practice in Uptown, earning respect not just for her technical skill, but for her warmth. Patients didn't just come to her for cleanings. They came because they trusted her. They came because she listened. Outside the office, Kendra's life blossomed. She gave back. She mentored. She built friendships that ran deep. She loved yoga, running, photography, and had an effortless way of making people feel seen. Then came Dr. Ricardo Paniagua, a respected dermatologist. Their connection was instant. Friends say she was happier than they'd ever seen her. Two accomplished professionals. Two open hearts. Planning a future, sharing quiet mornings and dreams that felt finally within reach. By all accounts, Kendra was exactly where she was meant to be. Her journey, one of grace, grit, and giving, was finally unfolding into a beautiful chapter. But while Kendra was building her dream life, someone else was watching. Quietly, from a distance. The unraveling had already begun. Every story has a shadow. A person who doesn't just vanish after the curtain falls. Someone still watching from the edges. Brenda Delgado was once a central figure in Ricardo Paniagua's life. But after love faded, something far more dangerous took its place. Brenda was born in Mexico and brought to the United States as a child. Her family settled in Texas, working hard, sacrificing much. Her parents believed in education, in respect, in assimilation through achievement. From the outside, she was the embodiment of their hopes. Bright, polite, and fiercely driven. Brenda made it to dental hygiene school, then into paralegal training. She moved through life with quiet determination. But behind the ambition was someone still unsure of her place in the world. She longed to belong. To be seen not just as successful, but as irreplaceable. In 2012, Brenda met Ricardo. Handsome, charming, a physician with a magnetic confidence. Their connection was immediate. He was everything she wanted, not just a partner but a future. She introduced him to her family. She spoke of marriage. She imagined children. But beneath that dream was a tightening grip. Friends described Brenda as devoted. Others called it something else. She wanted to be his world. And when he began to pull away, the cracks grew deeper. When Ricardo ended the relationship in 2015, it didn't just end a romance. It unraveled Brenda's sense of control. She didn't just lose a boyfriend. She lost a future she believed she'd earned. She tried to reconnect, then tried to justify, then tried to erase him. But something deeper had already taken root: obsession. Soon Brenda found her. A name. A face. A life she believed should have been hers. Kendra Hatcher, a dentist like Brenda once aspired to be. Kind, successful, glowing in every photo. Brenda didn't just compare. She began to study. Late at night, Brenda would search through Kendra's life, tracking where she worked, who she was with, what Ricardo liked on her posts. Each click deepened the wound. She created accounts, watched their photos, monitored their check-ins. She kept a digital leash on a man who had long since walked away. Obsession by its nature rarely ends in silence. It seeks an outlet, a decision, an action. And sometime in the summer of 2015, Brenda Delgado crossed an invisible line, one she could never come back from. This wasn't just heartbreak. It became calculation. Because Brenda wasn't simply watching. She was beginning to plan. By the summer of 2015, Brenda Delgado had stepped beyond heartbreak. She wasn't just hurt. She wasn't just watching. She was organizing. And the most dangerous plans don't begin with weapons. They begin with whispers. Crystal Cortes was 23. A single mother with mounting debt, a struggling job history, and dreams she couldn't afford to chase. She wasn't violent. She wasn't reckless. She was just desperate. Brenda approached her with what seemed like a simple idea. Surveillance. A favor. Watch someone. Nothing dangerous. Easy money. Crystal didn't ask too many questions, and Brenda knew she wouldn't. It started with observation. Following Kendra. Learning her schedule. Mapping entrances, exits, patterns. But Brenda knew they would need more. Someone with a certain kind of experience. Someone who didn't hesitate. And in the folds of Dallas underworld, she found Kristopher Love. Kristopher Love had a history. Felony convictions. Ties to guns. A reputation for being unpredictable. But Brenda didn't need stability. She needed certainty. Someone who wouldn't flinch. She made contact. Offered money. Fed him a story, not the truth, but a version designed to ignite his anger. Brenda didn't tell them the woman she targeted was a successful dentist, or her ex's new partner. She told them a different story. A betrayal. A setup. A threat to her safety. She painted herself as the victim, and Kendra as the villain. Crystal drove. Love rode in the back. They began rehearsing, watching, studying, choosing the perfect moment. Not to follow, but to strike. Brenda was the architect, but she never had to step into the building. Her hands stayed clean. Her phone lit up. The instructions, precise. She wasn't impulsive. She wasn't sloppy. She manipulated Crystal with promises of quick cash. She hooked Kristopher with a distorted story of revenge. And she remained in control. As the days ticked closer, Brenda pulled the strings tighter. Coordinating cars, timing, tools, alibis. But in every plan, no matter how carefully constructed, something always slips. September 2nd. A sunny afternoon in Dallas. Kendra Hatcher was running errands. Unaware that 3 lives had just intersected, and only 2 would walk away. September 2nd, 2015, it was just another day for Kendra Hatcher. The kind of day you never suspect will be your last. She woke up early as she always did. The day stretched out in front of her, filled with the routine of errands and plans. Nothing seemed out of place. Kendra, ever the professional, made her way to the dental clinic. But in the back of her mind, something she couldn't see, a shadow, was already closing in. Meanwhile, Crystal Cortes was already driving. Her passenger, Kristopher Love. Their destination? The parking garage where Kendra parked every day. The last stop on her normal routine. They arrived early. Waiting. Watching. They stalked the entrance, tension mounting with every passing minute. Kristopher, still a stranger to the life he was about to take. Crystal, caught in Brenda's web of lies. Kendra's car rounded the corner. She had just returned from her errands. Unaware of the danger waiting in the shadows. As Kendra walked towards her car, the world seemed to pause. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her. Didn't know that the end was near. In that fleeting moment, Kendra Hatcher was just a woman going about her life. A quick decision. A moment's hesitation. And then it happened. The attack, swift, silent. But the true violence wasn't just in the action. It was in the coldness of the mind that orchestrated it. Kristopher didn't hesitate. He knew exactly what he had to do. A car sped off, quickly, leaving the garage in a blur of dust and confusion. But even the best plans aren't foolproof. The camera caught them. Their faces. Their car. The evidence was already out there. The garage was silent once more. The life of Kendra Hatcher, taken in a heartbeat. And while Kendra's final breath marked the end of her story, it was only the beginning for those who would soon be caught in the aftermath. As the news of Kendra Hatcher's death spread, the city of Dallas was stunned. What appeared to be a random act of violence, a carjacking gone wrong, was quickly overshadowed by a troubling question. Was this really just a robbery? At first, the theory was simple: a carjacking gone wrong. It seemed plausible. A woman alone in a parking garage, a quick, violent attack, but something didn't add up. The problem? Kendra's car was untouched. Her valuables remained right where she'd left them. It didn't take long for investigators to realize this wasn't a random crime. But if this wasn't a robbery, what was it? Forensics teams began to sift through hours of footage. Surveillance cameras had caught something critical: a vehicle. The license plate clearly visible. The footage provided a breadcrumb, the first real lead in a case that would soon unravel. The car was traced. Pings from nearby cell towers gave investigators a clear sense of the perpetrator's movements. Everything was beginning to line up. Cell tower data would later confirm the criminals' locations, pinpointing their movements. Meanwhile, financial transactions linked to the suspects' burner phones and stolen accounts further tightened the noose. This wasn't just a random attack. This was a carefully orchestrated plan. But the breakthrough came not from technology but from the suspects themselves. Crystal Cortes, once a figure in the shadows, began to crack under pressure. When the walls closed in, the truth couldn't be kept hidden any longer. Cortes' confession was a key moment. She could no longer deny her involvement. She had been part of the plot. But what she didn't know was how much she had left out. Investigators pulled phone records, and it was there, in the cold, digital evidence, that they found the smoking gun. Texts between Crystal, Brenda Delgado, and Kristopher Love. Words like revenge, easy money, will make it happen, all part of the twisted plot that led to Kendra's murder. It was clear now. Kendra had been the target of a sick plan, a scheme driven by jealousy, obsession, and manipulation. And the mastermind? Brenda Delgado. With every new piece of evidence, the story grew clearer. What had started as a random attack was now a tale of betrayal, obsession, and manipulation. The threads of the investigation were coming together. But there was still one final question to answer: who would be held accountable for Kendra's death? The investigation into Kendra Hatcher's death had cracked wide open, but there was one critical detail that still eluded authorities: Brenda Delgado. After learning she was being targeted, Brenda made a quick decision: to disappear. She crossed into Mexico, leaving behind a trail of lies and deceit. In a desperate attempt to cover her tracks, Brenda assumed a false identity, blending into the crowded streets of Torreon. Back in the United States, the hunt for Brenda intensified. The FBI issued a warrant, placing her on the 10 most wanted list. She had become a fugitive, wanted for the murder of Kendra Hatcher. It wasn't long before authorities caught wind of her whereabouts. In the heart of Torreon, Brenda Delgado was finally tracked down. The fugitive, once elusive, was now in the hands of the law. But there was one hurdle yet to overcome. Mexico's extradition laws were complicated. They would only agree to send Brenda back to the U.S. if she faced a life sentence, but no capital punishment. Brenda's capture was a victory, but her return to face justice in the United States would take time. Finally, after months of legal battles and international negotiations, Brenda was returned to the United States. Her next stop, a courtroom where the truth would be revealed, but at what cost? But her arrest would raise new questions. Who really planned what, and how far would Brenda go to cover her tracks? Was she the mastermind? Or was there more to this story than anyone realized? As the investigation deepened, the web of deception became more tangled, and the truth seemed further away than ever. What had driven Brenda Delgado to take such drastic measures? And in the end, would she ever truly face the consequences of her actions? The pursuit of justice had led the case to this moment. The trial of those responsible for Kendra Hatcher's death was set to unfold in the courtroom. The weight of the evidence, the emotional toll on her family, and the bitter truths would be laid bare. Kristopher Love, the man who physically carried out the murder, was the first to face justice. With DNA evidence linking him to the crime scene, his involvement was undeniable. The prosecution was relentless, presenting a mountain of evidence that painted a damning picture. The weapon used to kill Kendra was matched to a gun found in Love's possession. Witness testimony, combined with his own statements, left little room for doubt. Yet, the defense fought tooth and nail, attempting to shift blame and create doubt. After days of testimony, the jury deliberated. The verdict came swiftly: guilty of capital murder. Kristopher Love was sentenced to death. Crystal Cortes, the woman who had been complicit in the plot, took a different path. Faced with overwhelming evidence, she made the decision to testify against Brenda Delgado. In exchange for her cooperation, she was offered a plea deal, a chance to reduce her sentence in exchange for her full cooperation. Cortes' testimony revealed the depth of Brenda's manipulation. It was Crystal who had driven Kristopher to the parking garage, who had been part of the plan to execute the murder. Her role was now clear, but the full truth of Brenda's influence over her was more complex. Her words were powerful, detailing how Brenda had spun a web of lies, promising revenge and money, and manipulating her into carrying out the crime. With her cooperation, the prosecution had one less piece of the puzzle to complete. And then, the trial of Brenda Delgado. The woman whose obsession and jealousy had led to the destruction of Kendra's life, and her own downfall. Brenda's defense team was ready. They argued she had been manipulated, that she had been under emotional distress. They attempted to paint her as someone reacting to the overwhelming loss of a relationship. Brenda had once been Ricardo Paniagua's girlfriend, a woman deeply in love, but she was also someone who couldn't let go. And it was her inability to move on that led to Kendra's murder. She had carefully planned and orchestrated every detail. Her defense made emotional pleas, attempts to humanize her, to show a woman who had loved and lost. But it was not enough. The truth was undeniable. Brenda Delgado was found guilty of capital murder. Brenda's sentencing came swiftly. Though prosecutors had sought the death penalty, the jury recommended life without parole. No possibility of release. Brenda Delgado would spend the rest of her life behind bars. And then Kendra's family spoke. Through their words, the courtroom heard the devastation that Kendra's loss had caused. A life full of promise stolen in an instant. A woman who had touched so many lives now gone. They had lost a daughter, a sister, a friend, and the hole she left behind would never be filled. In the quiet moments of grief, Kendra's family could only hope for one thing: that justice in its own way had been served. As the verdict was read, Brenda Delgado showed no emotion. A woman who had once been filled with rage, now silent, as if her heart had turned to stone. Kendra Hatcher's death would always be a tragic reminder of a life taken too soon. But in the courtroom, justice had been served, even if it couldn't bring her back. The loss of Kendra Hatcher reverberated far beyond the walls of the courtroom. In Dallas, the community that had once embraced her now grieved together. Her memory was honored with memorials, but it wasn't just her friends and family who mourned. The city as a whole had lost something irreplaceable. Kendra was more than just a victim. She was a friend, a colleague, and a beloved member of the Dallas community. Her patients, some of whom had known her for years, spoke out about the kindness and warmth she brought to everyone around her. Her colleagues in the dental community echoed these sentiments. She was known not only for her professionalism but for her compassionate care. Kendra had been a bright light, a source of inspiration for those around her. Across social media, tributes poured in. The hashtag Justice for Kendra became a symbol of solidarity for those who had followed the case. It was clear that Kendra's legacy would live on, not just in her profession, but in the hearts of countless individuals who had been touched by her life. The tragic loss of Kendra highlighted a dark and growing issue: the dangers of obsession, stalking, and the ease with which digital tools can be used to harass and harm. Her case sparked conversations about the importance of digital safety, urging individuals to be vigilant about the information they shared online. It also opened the door for awareness campaigns on stalking prevention. From seminars to digital safety workshops, the case of Kendra Hatcher served as a grim reminder that stalking, when unchecked, can escalate to violence. For those who knew Kendra best, the grief was deep and unrelenting. Her friends reflected on what had been lost: a bright future, a loving spirit, a woman who had so much more to give. Kendra's closest friends described her as someone who was always there for others, always willing to lend a hand. For them, it wasn't just the shock of her death, it was the cruelness of knowing that someone's obsession had taken her from them. For those involved in Kendra's murder, their lives have been irrevocably altered as well. Brenda Delgado remains behind bars, serving her life sentence, while Kristopher Love's death sentence looms over him. Crystal Cortes, who once aided in the murder, now lives with the consequences of her actions, her sentence reduced after her testimony. The echoes of Kendra's death still linger, leaving behind a stark reminder that the ripple effect of one life lost can affect many. But for her family, her friends, and the community of Dallas, the healing is slow, and justice, though served, cannot bring back what was taken. Kendra Hatcher's legacy lives on in the memories of those who loved her. It is a legacy of kindness, of ambition, and of a life taken too soon. The lessons learned from her tragic death will not be forgotten. But the memory of Kendra, the woman who brightened every room she entered, will forever echo in the hearts of those who knew her. Kendra Hatcher's story is one of brilliance, kindness, and potential, a woman who made an impact on everyone she met. But it is also a story of tragedy, of obsession, and the consequences of a relationship gone horribly wrong. From her days at the University of Kentucky to her rise in the world of dentistry, Kendra's light shone brightly. But in the shadows, a dangerous obsession was taking root. A jealousy that would tear apart lives, leaving behind a trail of devastation. Kendra's story teaches us many things, but above all, it reminds us of the importance of boundaries in our relationships, both offline and online. Healthy connections are built on trust, respect, and mutual understanding. In a world where digital connections are a central part of our lives, we must be vigilant. Our personal information, our movements, even our emotions can be manipulated. It is crucial to stay aware of the red flags, to set boundaries, and to know when to step away from a toxic situation. Kendra Hatcher's life may have been cut short, but her light lives on. In every person she helped, in every friend who called her their own, Kendra's spirit continues to shine. Her memory will never fade. And as we move forward, we carry her legacy of compassion, kindness, and ambition. If Kendra's story moved you, share her legacy with the world. Your voice matters. Share, like, and subscribe to keep these stories alive. Because awareness is protection. Together, we can prevent another tragedy and honor the lives of those lost too soon.